Hello, it's me. It's the new year. Happy New Year. And people are ready to make changes in their life. That's what, people do around the New Year's. You want to go to the gym more, you want to fix your mental health, all that good stuff, right? This is going to give even more interest in self-help content, which, lucky for folks who are interested in this, is only getting more and more popular and diverse. But even though this content can be really helpful when it comes to expanding yourself, making yourself more skilled, even more healthy, it also has a glaring flaw. And you can detect that flaw in the very fact that the content is getting more popular. The issue is that this content is trying to address issues, especially nowadays, of mental health and of self-development and of meaning and all that stuff that is very much negatively influenced by political and economic forces, collective struggles, but is giving individual fixes. We're trying to fix ourselves to solve our problems, but our problems are outside of ourselves. Thus, self-help is not enough. Welcome to the video. A lack of critical consciousness in this content. And by that I mean just the ability to think critically about one's impact in the world and the world's impact on oneself is leading to gaps in self-development, furthering of social divides, and unhealthy audience-creator dynamics. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll talk to you about it. There's a lot of YouTubers and TikTokers you've probably seen, okay? You've probably seen what I like to call self-help besties. They're folks who will turn on the camera and talk to you. Maybe they'll smile, maybe they'll yell at you, maybe both. And they'll talk to you as if they are your good friend, giving you good advice about how to be more positive and stand up for yourself. There's one person in particular who reigns supreme, the queen of this type of content, particularly on YouTube. And her name is Thewizardliz. And today, she's the creator who I'm going to be looking at to talk about this larger issue. Thewizardliz has gotten way more popular over the past year, especially. She has multiple videos that have over 1 million views, and she's got this kind of wabi-sabi style in that there's like not too much of a production going on. It's just her sitting in front of what looks to be a webcam, talking to you like it's a FaceTime with a friendly but like tough love persona, So today, I think she's the perfect person for me to look at and talk about this overall issue with self-help that I have, as well as analyzing why she's popular and what the merits of her content is, because this is not a diss video. I think a lot of her advice is really good. What I'm trying to sort of figure out in general is what it is about this content that can change. What kind of future can we imagine for self-help moving forward as we recognize issues in our society and as we see some issues that may be present in the content itself. So we'll get on that after this ad break. Thank you for watching the ad. So let's start with the very issue itself of whether the self-help is help in the self, because that's what self-help is, right? It's help in the self. I'm good at this. Advice given from people from Dale Carnegie to Tony Robbins is about progressing your confidence, progressing yourself as a social individual, motivating yourself to go do the thing that you want to do, whether it's go to the gym more or get that dream life, etc. And for me, there's an elephant in the room here. I don't know if anybody else senses it, but there's an elephant in the room when it comes to what self-help does, and that is, what is the self? Now, this is a very ubiquitous idea, okay? I sound kind of like a stoner talking about that, but I feel like it's a really important question, right? Because the more you pick at the idea of the self, of what your self is, the harder it is to define, the more confusing it becomes. Even though we have this socially trained understanding that the self is such an obvious thing, and indeed it's a useful shorthand for, you, it's ultimately something that is very nebulous and very confusing. Okay, so I'm not crazy. Here's what I mean. Think of something that you love, okay? Think of one of your biggest interests. Now, when you pick something, think about why you like this thing. So for instance, let's say you love chocolate. Why do you love chocolate? A lot of people will say, because it tastes really good. And that's not really a good answer, because a lot of people think chocolate tastes bad. I know, kind of crazy, but a lot of people do. Taste is subjective. So the question becomes, why do you love chocolate? It's a subjective thing. If you like sweet things, so you like chocolate, why do you like sweet things? If it is that something sits well with your body when you eat chocolate, first of all, congratulations. But second of all, where does that come from? Of course, eventually these answers lead to experiences or conditions that relate to other people. Genetically, I was born this way, that my body processes it this way, or that we have a taste for it in my culture, so that's why I like it. Or my mother fed it to me when I was a child, and I enjoyed it because it felt like a reward for my experiences, and it felt like a taste I hadn't tasted before, or it was in line with, there's always things that relate to the other person, to the condition. So ultimately, there's no self here. The answers of who you are always lie in your being a piece of a greater puzzle. And this can be said of all matters relating to yourself. Ultimately, you are the results of people and things around you. So how does this relate to self-help content? Don't worry, I got you. So when we look at Thewizardliz's most popular video, this video will change your life. We can start to understand why. The first point and the anchoring point of the video that Liz makes in her advice to help you change your life, to bring yourself up from a bad place, she advises her audience to write down their dreams and live as if it's actually coming true.
So 1 year ago, right? 1 year ago, I was really still depressed. Like, I did not know what to do. Like, I was like in such a rut, kinda, and I didn't know how to get out of it. Mind you, I was in rock bottom. I write down, I am living in this country. My partner is this person. My partner spoils me and buys me everything I want. I am a successful YouTuber. My career is being a successful YouTuber. I earn a lot of money with YouTube. I travel wherever I want. I can afford whatever I want. I wrote everything that I wanted down as if it was happening right now. 1 year later, I'm living exactly the life that I wrote down.
Liz justifies this by giving the example from her own life. She was in a dark place in her life a year before making the video. She wrote the idea down of her dream life, and that was a manifestation ritual that she didn't fully believe in, but she noticed it had a significant impact on her psychology, which led to her changing her life in the process. Now, when it comes to this idea of manifestation, you probably know this isn't a new thing. This isn't Liz coming up with something out of the blue. Of course, this is something that's existed for a long time. Many of you might remember it as The Secret, which was a book that was very popular from a while back about how you can manifest things into your life by making it in your brain.
What kind of a house do you want to live in?
Do you want to be a millionaire?
What kind of a business do you want to have?
Do you want more success?
What do you really want?
But Liz's point isn't just that you can manifest. It's not just a spiritual endeavor, which is something that I wouldn't personally want to opine on either way. I don't personally have experience with manifestation. If you do, then that's great. There's not really a way for us to know how God works or if there is a God, so let's just let that be for different spiritual practices. But Liz doesn't even talk about the spiritual practice being the most important thing in her video. She's also talking about the psychological aspect. Namely, she finds that writing it down on pen and paper, writing down this meaningful thing especially, had a significant impact on her brain chemistry, on how it became a part of her thinking in everyday life.
It's almost like your mind does not know the difference between reality and what you put them, what you write down, right? It only knows what you tell your mind. If you constantly think about the past, if you constantly think about like that heartbreak and over again you cry about it, what happens is your mind thinks that over and over again you're getting heartbroken. But that's not the reality. But your mind doesn't know that, So that's how you can manipulate the mind into thinking that you're living a great life. You are healthy, you are wealthy, you have a good partner,
Now, the first thing I'll say about that is, like much of Liz's advice, this is really helpful, okay? This is super helpful. Again, this is not a video for me to bash Liz, bash self-help advice in general. A lot of self-help advice can be really helpful. In particular, the writing things down thing is something that we kind of know is scientifically proven as part of engineering the brain. There's a study from Japan that found that students who took notes with pen and paper as opposed to digitally had an easier time remembering certain information. And it also activated their dynamics of their brain activity more than just typing it down digitally, because there's a effect from the process of writing something down. And so yeah, you can alter your brain chemistry. It's neuroplasticity and that's all that, and writing things down on pen and paper can be part of that. So it's really good advice. If you want something, that's something that you can do. But let's bring it back for a second, okay? Because there's a part that can be a bit problematic to this particular advice Liz gives. What is your dream life? Where does that dream life come from, okay? Does your dream life benefit other people, or does it only benefit yourself in this kind of vain material way? And if that's the case, would you really even be satisfied with your life? Would you even be in a much better place if that were to come true? If you notice what Liz talks about as her dream life, it's something that has a lot of, capitalist ideas of success in it. Namely, that she wants to be a big YouTuber. That's what she wrote down. But why do you have to use manifestation, whether you believe in it or not, to establish that a different version of yourself has to be achieved in order to find happiness? It's one thing to say, I want to improve certain aspects of my life. I know that being healthier with my physical and mental health will make me better in my ability to live day to day, will make me a better friend, will make me happier. It's another thing to say, let me establish a whole different version of myself that I want to come true, and then use techniques in order to make it happen. Because, wait a minute, what's wrong with me now, right? Why does happiness not exist in now? Why can't it exist in how you are, or at least who you are in this current moment? Why does there have to be a different journey, a different purpose that you have to reach in order to fulfill this self-help journey? Now, of course, Liz doesn't say you have to have a dream life, but there's an implication there, right? That if you're in this dark place, then that means you have to get out of that dark place in this very visceral, visible way, that there's a specific destination to go to. And that destination just so happens to involve making a lot more money than you do now, having a lot more social status than you do now, etc. Which, dude, those are social ideas. Those are ideas that you have in your head as being the best for you through your socialization. There's nothing that's inherent to you about that dream life. And there's extremely varied answers as to what a better life can be. So not having a critical approach to that is not going to be extremely beneficial to you, because this can lead us to potentially accepting unhealthy desires and perceptions of self as necessary to find happiness. It doesn't do anything to address how collective situations, how healthcare systems, familial traumas, city infrastructures, etc. are usually what are causing you to be in this dark place in the first place, at least in great part. Okay, I know we all would like to think that we just have these things, these clouds over our heads, but no, the clouds are actually up there and they're affecting us. When there's no sunlight, right, we all accept that winter depression is a thing because the sun doesn't come out as much and because it's frigid. So clearly, we all understand that who we are and how we feel is very much affected by the things around us. And yet when it comes to establishing our dream life, it just has to be all us. There's no examination of the outside world as needing to change in some way. And I get that that's partially because we need to have agency in order to make things happen, and we only have real agency over ourselves and barely that. But why don't we also think about the collective answers, the systemic change that is putting us in the place we are in the first place? Why do we always have to be no, it's me that has to change? So this is how self-help content leaves us with gaps in our self-development and our understanding of ourself. It doesn't address what our self is and how all these different factors lead to us thinking the way we do and feeling the way we do. It enables us to settle for socially conditioned ideals of success as the answer to our problems, and thus it can lead us to a lack of self-awareness, selfishness, and furthered insecurity about who we are or about who we've been without being critically examined. So instead of being able to feel comfortable with yourself, you're more so comfortable with the destination that you've reached. But what comfort did you have with your body weight or with the spiritual idea of yourself in that process? It's more so that you accomplished a couple of goals, you leveled up, you reached another level of the game. But there has to be something more to self-help than that, because that's literally just you succeeding in society, you passing its tests. So maybe this isn't about helping the self at all. Maybe it's about furthering yourself in society. Maybe it's about playing by society's established rules more than anything. More on that after the ad break. So let's talk about furthering social divides. Self-help content is inherently selfish. Again, for good reason. You can only really focus on yourself. You can't change other people. We've talked about that. But often as a result, this lacks a sense of self-awareness and consciousness of the environments which we are given, ones which, especially when understanding how flimsy that concept of the self is, risk making us more selfish and uncritical of the world around us, and thus may lead us to perpetuate biases and inequalities. Let me explain what I mean. So one of the primary ways this is done is by reinforcing to the audience that the audience is just not good enough to get what they want right now, and that they gotta change themselves. They gotta work for it to fit the ideal. You can control it. You just gotta put in the work. You gotta make the change. This encourages us to think of ourselves and others who are like us unkindly, okay? So that person who's in a dark place, who's depressed, who's anxious, like us, that person, they just need to fix their lives, okay? They need to get their shit together. They need to watch a Liz video. They need to read a book and get to the next level of their life. It's not at all the things that are around them. It's not at all these conditions that affect them and affect us. We have no empathy for that. It's just them. They got to fix it.
The important thing to understand here is that Uncle Frank gave up on himself. He made a series of foolish choices. I'm sorry, and he gave up on himself, which is something that winners never do.
That's ultimately what you're thinking of when you're thinking that very idea of yourself, when you're thinking, oh, I can't blame anything around me. It's not about what's around me. It's about me. I have to make the change. I have to step up and change things. Like, yes, it's great to take personal responsibility, but don't you think that should also come with an empathy and a consciousness for understanding what's around you? And again, this is not me imposing this idea that Liz is this completely unempathetic, selfish person. I don't want to encourage that kind of commentary. I'm just saying that the self-help advice that she's giving has these flaws that sort of perpetuate these ideas, even though they're often very good. So one example of this is from that video, okay, the Change Your Life video. Liz gives this advice to stop surrounding yourself with stupid people and stupid things.
Stop watching stupid videos. Stop listening to stupid people. Stop listening to stupid music, okay? When I was in my depressive, life, whatever, my depressed, episodes, this was insane. The only thing I would listen to is sad songs because, I resonated with them. They made me sadder. I would look at stupid people literally doing stupid things, not involving me at all. And so I was stuck in a rut. Because what I watch, what I listen to constantly is my reality. People that I hang around with is my reality. Show me what you watch. Show me what you listen to. Show me who you hang around with. That is you.
Now, this, of course, is judgmental. It's an inherently judgmental thing to say, or to do, or to think. And I think it's great advice to be mindful of what you consume and who you surround yourself with, of course. But a lack of empathy and open-mindedness towards these things, whether or not you choose to associate with it, is only going to lead to toxicity. For one, it can perpetuate negative perceptions of any type of music, for instance. She says stupid songs, right? Stupid music that are denigrated by society. When we talk about female rappers, right? We talk about artists like Megan Thee Stallion and Glorilla, contemporary artists who are often demeaned for their subject matter. We're talking about sexuality and talking about getting money too much. It's not that I am against being critical of artists, but oftentimes music like that is unfairly put in a position of being so shallow and so diminutive when compared to other music that maybe doesn't necessarily deserve to be put above it. And also this reperpetuates social inequities because it's putting, for instance, black women in this position of being the people who make the diminutive music in their most visible spaces. And it overlooks the ways in which a lot of audiences might feel enjoyment or empowerment from this music that even may be, something that's stupid, let's say, but doesn't merit them being talked down to. It's not like everybody only listens to smart music all the time. I'm sure you've got some Merzbow going on in your Spotify, but as for me, I like a catchy rhythm, and sometimes I like to hear people express their sexuality more because I think that's fun, and I think it can be empowering, especially for women, for people who are not men. In Liz's experience, she talks about sad songs negatively influencing her. But these songs can be empowering for a different audience too, right? Sad music has a place. Ultimately, the point is that self-help often results to uncritical judgments of other people, which reinforce social divides that are caused by political problems. You can avoid consuming certain media without judging it as diminutive. You can avoid surrounding yourself with certain people without judging them as people, without thinking these things stupid, these people stupid. You don't have to think of yourself as being above other people to empower yourself. Right? Now, this kind of judgmental conclusion is more plainly visible in a recent video called Stop Dating Broke Guys. So rather than having this empathetic approach to women's issues and relationships and the inequities that they face and the power dynamics that men are often taught to demand in relationships regardless of how much they're contributing to their partner's lives, rather than talk about these social issues and these inequities in society and talk about how it affects people in a negative way and how they can liberate themselves from it, she instead chooses to just demean men who don't make enough money. To just say, stop dating broke guys, da da da.
These days, women are expected to be mothers, women are expected to be a chef, women are expected to be, a cleaner, a nanny, every single thing, your personal therapist, and then like giving all of our energy to you, making sure you're this big man. And then on top of that, people decided to say, you know what? Let us also split the bill. Let us pay for these guys. I just want to know who did this. And I want to meet this person in a dark alley. And I just want to talk. We as women today have no more expectations for men. We as women need to do better because these men are becoming spoiled. Another very important thing is do not date broke guys. Do not date guys that have no money, have no job. Do not date them. Now, what is a broke guy? A broke guy is a guy with no ambition, no drive. A man with ambition and drive will always have money. He will always find a way to have money, But a broke guy that expects you to give him money, that doesn't want to do anything and feels like the whole world is against him and he cannot figure it out, whatever. Do not date these guys, okay?
This is a short to the point approach. It's confident, it's engaging, but it's demeaning, and it doesn't do that well to help people not only with their social views, but with their empowerment of themselves. Even though patriarchy favors men materially and favors men in a lot of power dynamic ways, it ultimately does not favor the humanity of any person. It constrains men and masculine people to a life of constant pressure and emotional repression, where they're supposed to accept being demeaned for coming up short of any standard of masculinity, whether it be their physical strength, their intelligence, or their bank account. And yes, men perpetuate these things, but guess what? Clearly, women perpetuate these things too. Thus, by settling for demeaning broke men without considering the many possibilities of why men might be broke in the first place and how this might affect many men who don't necessarily fit into all the categories of being demeaning as the men she describes in the video might be, Liz reinforces patriarchal standards that cause all of us harm while trying to empower women in her audience. And again, this is not me coming at Liz. This is not a call out. This is not cancellation. Liz does a lot of great work in her videos, gives a lot of really good advice, but you have to be critical of what people say. It's really important to be critical, to think for yourself of what people say. As a matter of fact, let's talk about it after the ad break. Okay, thank you for watching the ads. It supports the channel. It helps me quite a lot. No more ads for the rest of the video. Let's talk about unhealthy parasocial dynamics. Ultimately, creators like me and Thewizardliz benefit from our audience's clicks, their engagement. We profit off of an audience. And at the same time, we're trying to sort of benefit that audience itself. This is an uneasy dynamic that's not helped by this sense of power and instability that we have to wrestle with when having a lot of eyes on us, especially when you have eyes on you like Liz does. When a creator becomes more popular, it becomes hard for them to be self-critical, and it becomes hard for their audience to be critical of them. This is a sensitive position for the self-help coach to deal with. Self-help content creators often struggle to manage it properly, leading to their audiences becoming too reverent of them. There are ways that creators reinforce this unhealthy stuff through a subtle, unconscious type of rhetoric. For example, in the beginning of this video will change your life, Liz is essentially daring you to prove her wrong, to call her a fraud, to try her advice and to call her a fraud if it doesn't work.
If you do what I say in this video for at least 30 days, 2 months, 3 months, you will see a positive change in your life. If you do not see a positive change, you can come back to this video and tell me, you know what, Liz, you're a fraud, you're a liar. You can comment it. This is how much I believe in this video.
Now, for one, this is giving the viewer the most extreme examples off the bat of support and disagreement. When you present to the audience, There are people that are going to be super changed. It's going to change your life when they hear this advice, or I'm a complete fraud. The audience member is now thinking about those polarized ideas of engagement with the video, and that steers them further and further away from something that's actually more empowering, which is being able to say, hey, I think I like this part of the video. I'm not sure about this part of the video. Engaging with the ideas for themselves, which is something that is empowering because it allows you to see that you're smart and that you're able to critically process the thing and that you're making your decisions on behalf of yourself according to what feels right or what seems to work for you. And creators like Liz and people who talk like this are often the most popular when it comes to stuff like this because they're targeting people who want to have confidence. They're targeting people who feel a lack of confidence, a lack of camaraderie, a lack of backbone in their lives. And so it becomes very compelling for them to engage with people who almost talk to them like a mother or a father or a big sister or a big brother and tell them, you got to do this, you got to do that. It gives them a structure in their life, right? These people with these types of personalities are often the primary audience for creators like Liz. But what you gain in being convincing to these folks, you lose in creating a critical consciousness. You're teaching your audience to either be a stan or a hater of the idea, which is not healthy at all. If you look at Liz's video comment sections, they're usually super flowery comments about how this advice changed her life and how she's amazing, which, you know what, praise is fine. You can praise a human being and not dehumanize them. Although it's quite extreme in the levels that you see when it comes to self-help creators. And yes, YouTube comments are not exactly the best places to find these things, but they're at least a way that we can see the way that the content is affecting the audience and how the algorithm is pushing out the content to specific audiences. Praise like this is pretty common among self-help gurus, from like Oprah to Gary Vee to Tony Robbins. All these self-help folks have legions of fans, these really popular ones. They have legions of fans that go to conventions, that praise them, that praise their words, every word, which, yeah, I'm being a little bit exaggerating, but it's definitely some degree like that. If you've engaged with Gary Vee in a critical way on the internet, you'll see what happens. And that allows all the stuff that they preach to be consumed kind of as gospel, including the negative stuff. Obviously, an example of this that a lot of people talk about nowadays is Jordan Peterson and how he has very, very devoted fans that will argue with you all up and down if you have anything critical to say about him. And he's a person who perpetuates certain ideas about leftism and about trans people, dehumanizing ideas about other people. And his audience oftentimes eats it up because they are really devoted to him because of his advice that he gave in 12 Rules for Life and YouTube videos. And yeah, that can often lead to really bad ideas, really bad bigoted ideas. But when it comes to the specific issue of self-help, maybe the most relevant part is that it also just isn't very helpful to you. It's not very healthy. It leads to a lot of people leaning on creators to give them structured guidance on how to live their lives, rather than empowering them to explore their own selves and their own experiences through these creators' advice. And this impedes a person's growth through unhealthy dependency. So let's conclude and talk about how we can move forward.
There are two kinds of people in this world: winners and losers.
Ultimately, Thewizardliz and content creators like her give really helpful advice through fun and engaging videos. And for the 15th time, I'm not trying to dunk on them, but their brand of self-help has to be examined critically. What we know as self-help right now, even when it's very helpful, is ultimately toxic. It needs a lot of work. It's littered with unjust, unfair ideas and power dynamics that are reflective of the society around it. Self-help content usually contains within it this subtle programming of individualism. It asserts that your problems can be solved merely through your own will, through a will that confirms material goods and ideals propagated by mainstream media are worthy of pursuing. It shames people for daring to ask about the systems and the communities around them, to ask more of the world around them, as opposed to simply fixing yourself so that you can get ahead. For better or worse, it targets the insecure, the people who search for guidance as a response to feeling inadequate according to ideas that they've internalized from this world around them. It prompts those people away from introspection and conscientiousness and towards self-improvement. It teaches them to simply better condition themselves, train themselves better to be worthy of the spoils of a perfect meritocratic world. Of course, they never say perfect. They always give you like, yeah, life is unfair and da-da-da. But it's like, if you're not going to acknowledge how the life is unfair and how the world is unfair in the content itself, then ultimately that's a platitude, right? Again, the issue is not that this content is ineffective. Indeed, self-help content is often highly effective at helping people improve themselves as social participants and improve parts of their lives. But it might actually be too effective. Self-help is like a strong medicine. It neutralizes the symptoms you experience from a disorder or an ailment so strongly that you forget to be holistic. You forget to care about the deeper implications and about your deeper self. You ignore the complications. You ignore trying to do other things. You ignore the causes of the disorder worsening. You double down on dosage until you become dependent on it to feel okay. And this is the relationship that a lot of people end up having with their self-help and their self-help creators and writers and gurus. They can't detach from them and their ideas, so they fight fiercely on the internet against other people, and they fight fiercely within themselves with these ideas, because if they don't have those ideas, they ultimately feel like they're going to crash back down to square one, to that dark place that they now feel is so bad and unbecoming, and they don't reflect in that way any type of real empowerment of themselves. It's just attachment. In order for self-help to solve our crises of mental health and isolation, we have to merge it with critical consciousness. Helping yourself has to be part of helping the collective. If the healthcare system is bad and you can't afford to treat your diseases, to treat your injuries, to get mental health treatment, if you can't afford to live in a house that you can actually feel comfortable and safe in, if you don't know when your next paycheck is gonna come in, how are you gonna improve? How are you gonna help yourself? The issues we face have to be understood as personal ramifications from socio-political conditions through which we can hold ourselves accountable whilst being forgiving of our perceived shortcomings. We have to... I ran out of space on my phone. Oh no, my camera ran out of battery. It must be them. They're out to get me. What I was going to say is that our goals are not diamond studded. Rather than uncritically maintain capitalist ideals for our own self-development, we should instead choose to seek collectivist ideals that are healthier and that work to improve the conditions of the collective. In other words, the self-help is not enough. We need help across the board. And the fact that so many people are going through so much mentally and physically and materially that they're focusing on finding content online to try to help them figure out a way through it, that should be a red flag. That should be concerning to us. I recommend you read some stuff by Paulo Freire, by Bell Hooks, as usual. Also, the YouTube channel Sisyphus55 is really good with this stuff. And there's a podcast called the It's Not Just in Your Head podcast that I recommend. And you can check all these things out for answers to helping yourself become healthier, to develop yourself better, while also sort of having a greater understanding of the world around you. And I promise you that this is going to help you more than just figuring out how to make yourself convinced that you should go to the gym more often. There's a collective situation going on around you, and it's affecting you, and you should start studying it and working to make it better. Okay, that's the end of the video. Sorry for the camera capacity issue. We're working on it, and we got more videos coming up in the future, so subscribe, hit the like button, comment, leave a Ko-Fi, send me $1 if you want, and thanks for supporting, and Happy New Year, dude. I hope that this year is going to be really great for you. I hope it's going to be really great for the collective, for us, for everybody, and yeah, bye.